A peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry B. I am the entree musician, and so are you. And so is this wonderful gentleman sitting to the left of your screen. He is none other than composer, pianist, educator, jazz fusionist, pianist extraordinaire, Mr. Jawanza Kobie, and he's joining us from West Philly. I am grateful to just be able to know him for the first time. I've only known him through his music, and now we're going to find out so much more about this great band leader. Brother Jawanza, how you doing today, man? Welcome to the Entree Musician.
I'm fine in yourself, and thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Oh, it's an honor to have you, man. I've, poured over your bio several times. I've had the opportunity to check out your music in the different configurations. Love how you flow through the genres, man. And you've been doing this a long time and just pretty much setting the standard for the rest of us, brother.
Yes, I have been doing this for a long time. So the first time I actually did my first record was in 1974. That was the first time I actually went in the studio and did a demo record.
Wow.
Didn't go anywhere, but I did.
But now, was this for you or was this with another artist?
No, this is for me. And actually, in a record company, you never believe what it was. A record company that was interested from that four track demo, not 4-track, 4-tune demo. Pickwick International.
Oh, wow.
Now, Pickwick International, I never heard of Pickwick International Records, but the claim to fame, the most famous person on there, might be before your time, was Lawrence Welk.
Oh, well, I knew Lawrence Welk when I was little. I saw the bubbles.
Yeah, he was the most.
Now, he was a band conductor, right? He conducted an orchestra, Lawrence.
He was on every weekend. They had a Lawrence Welk show. He was on he had a big orchestra. Oh, it was band orchestra, stuff like that. It wasn't a big orchestra, more so band. And yeah, Lawrence Welk would come on with, like you said, with the bubbles and things like the tap dancers and things like that. And he was a staple on TV for weekends. I never got into him, but I knew who he was. He was just world famous. But that was the claim to fame. He was the most famous artist on that record, and they were trying to branch out into the youth.
Okay.
But it never manifested any beyond it. They were interested. They said they were going to, but like I said, here we are right now talking about the past.
Well, that's interesting though. 1974, first demo, Pickwick International. I mean, that's potential right there. I knew that had to encourage you to say, hey, this is definitely something I'm going to continue to pursue, right?
Oh, yes, it did. Since I didn't work with people, I mean, like you're a musician, it's instilled in us, man. If one thing doesn't work, we're going to keep trying. Not right. Let one thing stop us.
No, you're right about that. And what's interesting is how you said, you were not necessarily a fan of Lawrence Welk, but you definitely have some roots in classical music because you were a serious follower of Beethoven and Gershwin and Copeland, right?
Yes, I was. My brother, my older brother, he was my influence. He had an eclectic taste. He was like 6 years older than me. He's passed now. He had an eclectic taste in music. And if you had talked to me up until I was about, let's say about 6 or 7, I would have told you I loved only classical music because that's what he was listening to. Now it's funny, we grew up in West Philly in our neighborhood, West Philly, black neighborhood and everything like that.
Right.
and he was an anomaly because he listened to classical music, but he listened to everything. I mean, he listened to, everything. He was the first one that he brought on a Beatles album. I said, what are you doing that, bringing on a Beatles album? Now I'm a fan of the Beatles. I'm the biggest fan of the Beatles. So this is where I got my classical introduction. Then my father, he was into jazz. And my father would bring home jazz albums, and he would borrow jazz albums and bring home jazz albums. So that's why I was a musical sponge. But the classical influence was mainly due to my brother. And he, like I said, Aaron Copeland, he was first was Gershwin, then he found Aaron Copeland. But then, his taste even grew even larger. He was really much of a great influence on me.
Now, so with respect to his instrument, what did he play?
My brother?
Yes, sir.
The record player.
Oh, is that right? Oh, I thought maybe he was a musician as well, and so.
No, I'm the only musician in the family.
Is that right?
Yeah, wow. No one else was music. What he did. Well, my mother had him taking piano lessons before when he was 12 years old. It didn't take well. It didn't stick with him. He had a very good voice. He could sing. But as a musician, he wasn't in it. That wasn't for him. And what happened, that's how my mother learned how I could play. After he would have his lessons, and after he did his lessons, I listened to him. I go up and play his lessons behind him at 6 years old. And she realized I had some ability to do that. So that's when she started me taking formal piano lessons, because I was playing up by ear by then, but I could do his lessons after he finished playing.
Wow.
So just by playing by ear.
Well, her money didn't go to waste.
Oh.
It didn't take with him, but you got caught on to it. That was excellent.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
So you went on to pursue music formally, and my understanding is you have a degree in music, majoring in composition at none other than Berklee School of Music. So that had to be wild. Traveling around in Boston, you had a big band, 30-piece big band playing jazz and funk. Tell us about that time.
Berklee, I always tell them, I always give props to Berklee. Berklee was the best time of my life. It was one of the best times of my life.
Yeah.
Raising my children, and all that stuff too. But Berklee, I recognized that was the first time I was alone. I said, a voice came to me and said, enjoy this. It's not going to get any better than this. So Berklee was a great experience. It was formal because prior to going to Berklee, I went to, like I said, I took the piano lessons from the private piano instructors. Then I went to the Settlement Music School here in Philadelphia. I don't know if you're not familiar, Settlement's a really large, it's an institution here in Philadelphia. About 4 branches. My piano teacher, neighborhood piano teacher, said she couldn't teach me anymore. Basically got sick of me. And so she suggested I go to another, outlet. So my mother took me to Settlement Music School, where the Philadelphia Orchestra teachers taught, some of those from there. So I just wasn't into taking lessons anymore. I only took lessons for a year, but I took composition there, which is what I really wanted to do. I've always been writing music. I started notating music at 9 years old. Wow. You can't read it, it doesn't make any sense, but that's when I started trying to notate music. So composition is what I really love going to Settlement School and getting into composition. Fast forward years later, I went up to Berklee, I auditioned the Berklee, and I actually got in. I had been away from music for a while, but I practiced up and got into Berklee. And Berklee, like I said, it was the greatest experience. I met lifelong friends who were here, and the people who I knew then, some of the people I met then that you know of right now. I had a big band, and I'd say about 30 people. I forgot how many people. I forgot that was about 20 people. It was about 20 horns. I forgot what, and the rhythm sections on top of that, something like that.
Wow. And you were arranging as well?
Wrote and arranged everything.
I see.
And to tell the truth, I like to say that was my first band. People say, well, how many bands? Yeah, that was my first one. I never played in bands too much here in Philly. Occasionally like jam sessions, but I always say that was my first band. That's the first way to start out, getting a 30-piece big band.
Absolutely. A lot of mouths to feed, brother.
Well, it was a student band. It was taken, it was really an offshoot. It was I don't know if you're familiar with composer Ray Copeland. He was a teacher at Berklee. And his son's name was Keith Copeland, a well-known drummer. He's a drum teacher at Berklee, but Ray Copeland had a band. Wow. And it was majority Black members, Black musicians and stuff like that. But then the band disbanded. It got too much for them. It got too political, stuff like that. So musicians came to me and asked me, you should start a band. I had never, like I said, I'd never been in a band. I never arranged anything like that. I said, yeah, I could do this. So I got a band together, then went to the Elma Lewis School of Fine Arts and put a play together and came up with a performance for that band. And what I wanted to go, and some of the musicians who were in my band who have gone on to prominence at the time, I had 2 different big bands. And the last one at the Berklee Performance Center had Bobby Sanabria. He's a multi-nominated Grammy Award. He's multi-Grammy Award nominated percussionist, educator. Who else? Bill Pierce, who's Art Blakely's Jazz Messengers music director. He was a first year he was a first year instructor at the year, so he was in the band as a guest appearance. Kevin Eubanks, who I went to school with, guitars and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
was supposed to be in the band, but it got to the point where I'd written so much music, I didn't have enough time to fit him in. Getting myself up in the head against that.
Wow.
And I'm trying to think, who else that you might know? Oh, then John Toussaint, he went on to Berklee, and that was his first band getting. He said he credits me for starting him off for being in the band. He said it gave him confidence. So those are the people who I started out with who in the band of one of the prominents. And there were some people who came out at the same year. I came out of Berklee. Eric Marienthal came out my year.
Is that right?
Wow. Kevin Eubanks, Bobby Sanabria, and I got to look back in the book Tommy Campbell, drummer.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think other people. I have to look who that was a class of 79. And so we all came out the same year together.
Oh, that's awesome. Eric Marienthal, with Chick Corea's Electric Band. Kevin Eubanks just did an album. It might be 2 years now, but with Dave Holland, that Prism, I think is the name of the album, and phenomenal stuff. And of course, we were all like tripping when he got the gig on the Tonight Show.
Oh, yeah.
But that's fantastic. That was the time of your life, basically.
I have stories with Kevin. I helped Kevin move when we were, I remember I have stories helping him move from the apartment and stuff like that too. We've connected in the last 3 years or something like that. I haven't seen him in many years, and now I'm seeing him at conferences, and we've reconnected since then. So,
Wow. Well, you have two wonderful albums of your own. And it's really interesting, like I said before, to hear the different genres that you kind of go through, because even when you are playing some hard funk, maybe it's your, ode to Chick Corea, but I could still hear a lot of Gershwin. I can still hear a lot of classical vibe in the funk that you're coming, because your band could be like straight in the pocket and you'll say, hey, let's make this left turn. So I really do dig that. What are you trying to convey, do you think, when every time you sit down to the piano? What is your primary message spiritually when you record or write or perform a song? Do you have something inside that you're trying to like get out or express?
I don't know how this will sound, but I basically write music that, because I look at it like this, I'm going to be stuck with this music. So I write music that I would like to hear, or I'd like to listen to if it was another artist. And because because I have an eclectic background, or eclectic taste in music. I listen, I'm a musical sponge. I'm not just pigeon to this. So I try to bring that out, and it just comes out in the music. But the basic thing is, like, I use the premise again, it's like if you come over my house and I make a dinner for you, I'm the one that's going to be stuck with the dinner. So if I come up here and make something for the guests all the times and they don't like the music, they don't like the food, I'm stuck with it. And so what do I do with it? So I approach music the same way. Let me put it so no one else likes, at least I like something about it, because eventually I'm the one who's going to be stuck with it. And I hope now, I don't know what that sounds like. I don't want to.
No, that sounds great.
But I hope that other people maybe join this journey. Maybe they'll like it too, because I know I write all over the place, and it's sometimes I have to focus because the industry wants you to be in a certain pigeonhole, a certain category.
Certainly.
And
certainly.
It's kind of hard for me. But
no, I understand that. One of the conversations we had before this conversation began online was just that. And, it's art and commerce. And you have to sometimes be forced into striking a compromise that you don't want to, because, the light bill still has to be paid. But, at the beginning of the day, it really is a spiritual journey for you, because I've got to be happy with the output. And
right.
I've got to eat the leftovers, so to speak, right?
You go.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And it's just, to me, it's so defeating when you write music, when you're trying to write for, you don't know the people's mindset. You don't know all, there's no way possible. And then you write something I'm writing for, that's so much pressure for me. So let me just write for an audience of one. That other people will get on board. Hope, they get on board with it too.
Man, I got to tell you about a time I saw Herbie Hancock. This was early in the game. Herbie had the record out called Rocket, if you can remember, the big robotic thing that was happening. I think he won a Grammy for that too.
It's his first Grammy. So
it's interesting because of all of the body of work that he had prior to. But I can tell you this, and anybody who's watching this or listening to the podcast may have been at that show. it was at the Front Row in Cleveland. And I don't think that venue's open anymore, but I went with a couple of my friends because we were into the Headhunters and the older 70s stuff. And this is new frontier for Herbie. But Herbie brought a trio with him that night, which was interesting. Full house, right? And he's going into these standards and, maiden voyage, and he's just doing his thing from a trio perspective. And I'm telling you, man, maybe about 45 minutes into the gig, you could hear people getting their keys and, tipping out. And, he had like half a room. And for about 4 minutes, this brother played Rocket as a trio. Dude. It was really interesting. And then, people were kind of appalled. And he said, okay, now we can really get into music. I mean, he felt like he needed to feed his own spirit that night. And it was a wonderful trio set, but people were coming to hear Rocket. Now, there was someone who bucked the system because he know this is why they, bought the tickets, but he wanted to play Rocket in his own way. It's crazy.
But it was still a great concert too. I mean,
it was wonderful.
Herbie, I wish I could practice. I can't even practice well enough to play his mistakes. I mean, like Herbie and Chick, they're my contemporary. A contemporary. But of course, I love pianists. I didn't mean to cut you off, and I love.
No, you're good.
And I love. Because I go back to Art Tatum. Who I love is Art Tatum. It starts with Art Tatum. Like Art Tatum, he's not a pianist. So he's just he's got it. And everybody else under him. So
right.
So I come back from, there are people beyond Art Tatum I know too, but Art Tatum is where I measure everything from.
Yes, sir.
And then, like I said, you move up to regression to like the Herbies and Chicks and Keith Jarrett's and people of those natures. And you have the people who are living today. I'm skipped like you said, Bob Ball. I know he's contemporary.
Yeah.
Bob's even tried to help me out. He's a very giving person.
He is.
He's he give because I've been on his. He's even played some of my stuff on his radio station. And,
certainly.
I'm trying. My mind is escaping it because I know a lot of these contemporary. You got Kristen Sands out right now. That kid, y'all familiar with that boy? Is bad. He's the new. Where jazz is going to be. Except you have Corey Henry. You got
Corey Henry's bad. Yeah, bad brother.
Brother out in not from Texas. Black. He did the Black radio.
Double Booked is the cut that I listen from him all the time.
I'm trying. It'll come to me. This guy, he's the most famous. I went to Robert Glasper.
There you go.
Glasper. I think Robert Glasper.
I said Double Booked. I know him by his music, so.
Okay.
that was the CD I listened to.
And like I said, they're just a few of the people that the people that I try to be, because I love listening to local jazz piano. Like I said, I'm a fan of piano. You'll see me when I'm unable. I love to go listen to piano players who have something that I think that brings something different to
to the conversation.
Yes, exactly. I'm glad you helped me out with that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, because it is a language, and many of these brothers are just speaking from their heart, and you could hear it, come out through their fingers, and it's not just the technical, and that's where I like to listen to. I'm a drummer and I'm always into the soul. Okay, what is he saying? And they can have all the technique down, but sometimes if it's too technical, it could be boring. You want to hear, Glasper is talking to me here. He said something. I heard you, brother.
Right.
You said that. You know what I mean?
I understand that. I understand your point, and you're right about that. Some things could be so technical, it loses a feel, something like that.
Exactly.
And the way I approach things, I don't feel I'm a piano player.
Yeah.
So my thing is composition.
Mm-hmm.
So you won't hear me do too many solos, because the solos, I'm not here to show you that I can play a solo. My thing is the composition. I give it to other people in the band. So you go to my show, people just smack me and say, do a solo. Now I don't feel like it. I said, I wrote the damn tune. That's enough for me. I don't do any more than that.
Understood.
But the composition's the thing for me. That's where it is with me. Like I said, I wish I could play it better. I try to play better, but at this age, I think it's about as good as it's going to get.
Well, I tell you what, and I'm not just saying this because you're here. I was very, very, impressed because sometimes, you know, you'll just put on YouTube and it's not to sit there and watch. You know, it really is like a radio station. And, you know, when you put on a playlist of Jawanza's music, it's like, oh man, you know, I mean, I heard you. I didn't see what you did because I'm not watching, you know, but it came across. And that, I think, you know, I mean, music before, especially, let me just insert this, because before the music video became the mainstream, especially jazz, because jazz was, you know, one of the last genres to jump on, you know, the record company saying, oh, we got to have a video for this, because the means of communication was all audio and spirit. It was just being downloaded into your spirit. You know, okay, we can get the Michael Jacksons and we can get the Rick James and the pop. We expect that. And yes, you got to have a storyline, but jazz was meant to be appreciated from another level. So, you know, I never really got into the video jazz concept. It just never worked. I'm always listening. I
Right.
can tell you something to listen to too,
Right.
if you haven't heard, which is you mentioned your boy Keith Jarrett. Keith Jarrett has a CD, it's an older CD with Charlie Hayden on bass called Jasmine.
Hmm. I gotta go for that if I haven't heard it, because I've listened to a lot of Keith. Jasmine.
Keith, yeah, it's called Jasmine. And,
Okay.
you know, it's just piano, upright bass. And a lot of times I'll take it to the drums and I'll just vibe with them. I'll be the third member,
Yeah, that's
but
a
it's
good.
just a wonderful, wonderful project. If you just want to talk about pure spirit coming across the speakers, roll with that one.
I'm gonna tell. I definitely will look at that one. I will definitely go
Definitely.
for that. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Now tell me about your time with the great Billy Paul. I believe you toured with him.
Yes, I did. I played with Billy for a year. In
Mm.
fact, it was my first gig out of getting out of college.
Is that right?
Yeah, he had met. I finished my study. I finished all my studies in December of '78. Even though I came out, my year of graduation was officially '79. I'd finished all my work. I'd met him in September. This is a brief story. Bear with me on this story. I grew up in West Philly, in West. If you're familiar with Will Smith from West Philly too. But
Mhm.
anyway,
Yeah.
around the corner from me, a lot of celebrities would come around and visit this one guy who was pretty well, because he was Stevie Wonder's cousin.
Mm.
Even when Stevie did final, Stevie was at the height of his career. When he would
Yeah.
come to Philly, he would stay on 57th Street with his cousin in West Philly.
Mm.
So because of that association, notable people would come over and visit his cousin. If you look in the back of any of Stevie's albums in the 70s or something, his cousin's name is Damian Smith. You'll see his name in the back of it.
Mm.
When I went over there in September, Billy was over there. That was a few months before I graduated, and Damien was telling me, this cat's good. You know, he's graduate, he's good, he's a bad guy. So Billy said, well, I'm looking for somebody. Look me up when you come on out. I said, all right, I thought about it. So anyway, I came on out. I didn't really think much of it. Then when I came on out, I looked him up and called on. He said, come on down and audition. I auditioned and I played and I got the gig.
Wow.
But I got the gig as the backup keyboard player. They had a keyboard player by James Batten. He's a bad boy, but he's since passed too. He was the head keyboard player at the time until he left. Then I took over as the head keyboard player for the remainder.
Wow.
Played
Yeah.
with Billy Paul.
My
I played with him
goodness.
for a year.
And so touring and recording.
Didn't do the recordings. I came up after he did his last recording a month or two before I joined the band with Philly International. I just said not with Philly International was his last record. He had went on to some other labels beyond that.
Yeah.
But that was, and I missed it as a band recording. But I toured with me, toured going around the world with him doing that in 1970. No, it was 1980. I'm sorry, no 79, because I was 79 up until 80.
Wow.
I played with him.
So have you done more session work with Philly International, Kenny Gamble, Leon Huff?
No, that was
apart from Billy?
No, I hadn't. I haven't done anything recordings with them. No, I did some things recordings I've done with Warner Brothers, with Philly, with this. That was when I got out of after I finished playing with Billy Paul. It was Warner Brothers had a singer that was in Philadelphia, and I knew the people who were producing it, and they asked me because I did some session work for them with this particular singer. Then there's some other fledgling little labels. I was on a label called Alpha International Records.
Alpha.
That was International with
Yes,
some
sir.
notable people there. I was brought on as producer, songwriter. But beyond that, that was about and there was some independent, little smaller labels and stuff like that with no distributions, major distributions.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, what has been, you think, as you look back over your career, the most challenging lesson that you've had to walk through as an entree musician?
Getting out of my own way.
Hmm. Explain. Can you expound on that?
We were speaking, just you and I were just speaking about the music industry.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about, like I said, we have to think about, we don't like to, but it's hard making categories or something like that. And that's what I mean, getting out of my own way. I was reluctant or resistant to doing certain things that I'm going to do it this way, and I'm just going to do it this way. So I had to come back and refine and take into account we're in this for a business. We have to think about the business first, because we can think about art all we want. That feeds our ego,
Yeah.
but you want to feed your pocket, and you want an income. So you have to change your mindset. So if I had to differentiate between feeding my ego or being income driven. Yes, so that's what I mean by getting out of my own way. So let me not say they're just going to listen to this and I'm going to do this. I don't care.
Yeah.
So you have to adapt to a certain degree, and still be authentic and genuine in your writing. So that was one of the first things, just getting out of my own way.
Was there a second?
Second thing?
Yeah. Was there a second challenge that you overcame?
No, I would not that comes to mind. No, not really. I mean, it's just an ongoing. It's a continuum. So it's nothing that stands out. That I mean, I'm learning every day. I'm learning every moment, and so it's a continual learning. So it's nothing like a major standout thing that really got.
Well, what do you think is your most rewarding experience then as an entree musician? You've overcome the challenge of getting out of your own way. What show or recording or experience that you've had that you can say, wow, this was the one that was worth it all? Maybe more than one.
Well, I was trying to think. I think one of the most rewarding experiences that people like my stuff. That people, you write something, and I have a newsletter. Like I just told you, I have a newsletter subscribers list, and if you want to, you just go to my website and there's a sign up sheet. But I enjoy the people there. The people, they stick with me. I mean, they stick with you, and the fact that people don't know you and they believe enough in you to sign on to you, and they stick with you, and that's one of the most rewarding things. That feeds the ego, and but that from a spiritual aspect, because they can pick anybody, they can pick anybody else, but they pick me to follow me, and I don't take that for granted. That's the most, that touches me. Doing stuff like that. But from a musical aspect, not much. That's pretty much it. I mean, except that it's continuous. It's a continuous. It's not like because I enjoy this. Yeah. I enjoy writing. I mean, if nobody's going to listen, I'm gonna still write. That's not because you listen to it or not. There's a tree make a sound in the woods when it falls. I don't know if I use that.
Nobody listens. Nobody's there to listen, I should say. Yeah,
it still makes a sound.
Absolutely. That's true, and that's the physics of it. That's absolutely the correct answer. Yes, it may not be effective. That not too many heard that distinctively, but you heard it. It did make a sound. It did happen. And I'm reminded of a documentary. I think the name of the documentary was a band out of Detroit. It was called A Band Called Death, Death. And I would advise any entree musician to watch that. You talked about your brother being in West Philly and listening to the Beatles and listening to classical music. Well, this band was a Black band around the corner in Detroit, Michigan from Motown, playing rock music, before Living Color, before, these guys. And you can go on Netflix or whatever your platform is and just type in A Band Called Death. Now, the interesting thing about it was they were playing all this metal music and, brothers were saying, yo, what's up, right? And the band leader, who has since passed away, he kept promising the band, hey, somebody's going to hear this. This is going to really move people. Never did. I think 2 other band members passed away, if I remember the documentary properly. But some kid who was in the punk music and rock in San Francisco was going through a vinyl bin. He was a DJ, found this band, put it on. This is 20 something years later, and it just blows up.
Really? Did you see the story Finding Sugarman? Did you see the one on 60 Minutes, Finding Sugarman?
No. Was that about Burt Sugarman?
No, it wasn't about this. The singer, he from the West Coast. He did an album in the early 70s or something like that. And it never made over here, but it picked up the anti-apartheid in South Africa. They picked him up as a champion. That encouraged the apartheid to be demolished.
Oh my goodness. Now I have to watch that.
And he was living in obscurity, working at a car wash or doing something. He's in the 70s now. And they just did a thing. He's the biggest thing over in South Africa. They just did a thing. They did a thing about 5 years ago on 60 Minutes and stuff like that.
Wow.
So his music was the lyrics and the things that gave him encouragement for people to, to oppose apartheid and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And like it's like he wrote it in the 70s. Now he's the biggest thing. And I forgot, I think he got even an honorary Grammy in the United States because of it, something like that.
Amazing.
So
now I'm gonna have to check that out. I will do that. I am a history buff. I love watching documentaries and Sugarman.
Too, yeah. Okay, good.
That's fantastic.
Finding Sugarman.
Finding Sugarman.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely going to look that up. Now, you have traveled across, and I'm talking about decades, the different aspects of how the music business works. Obviously, in 1974, when you made your first demo, it was all about distribution. It was all about being on the right record label. It was all about radio play, if you can get it. And now, that we're into the streaming platforms and whatnot, has there been, because you've been in the industry so long, has it been like just the smooth journey for you, or did you have to make adjustments that were hard and fast and you needed to find that, hey, I got to learn this, or I have to be on this? Or was it because, I'm just making this left turn now, just like you do in your music?
It's pretty much the latter, making a left turn.
Gotcha.
Pretty much, the industry dictates what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And because I said, when I started, they were using, of course, there was no digital or anything like that. There's no notation software.
Yeah.
The equipment was, so I'm also an electrician by trade. I'm a journeyman electrician. I went through an apprenticeship.
I see.
Before I went to Berklee, that's how I paid for Berklee. So I can get into potentiometers. I can get into the equipment and things that have changed over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen the equipment change, from analog to digital. Now the platforms and how to get out. Right now, this is an advantageous time for all people because you don't need the record labels. In fact, sometimes record labels, don't get me wrong. Well, let me preface that. I need the funding of the record labels. Mm-hmm. That would be nice. Mm-hmm. But because of the advantages of this distribution string, it's open to everybody, even the independent, even well-known artists are doing the same thing. They're going to independent distributors like CD Baby, TuneCore, whatever these independent. I'm sure you know a lot more.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's what's changed, and it's open to everything. Now the misnomer of it is because it's open to everybody, it's open to everybody. And when I say it's open to everybody, anybody and their brother can buy a laptop and do stuff, and they're all set. So the competition is it's crazy.
That's true.
And to get seen beyond your composition, you have to think strategically. You have to come up with a plan. You just can't say, this is one thing I'm into marketing. I love marketing. Mm-hmm. And I'm not good at it, but I like it. But and the thing is, so many people come up and say, help, I need help with my recording. I need to do this. And then so they put all the money in the recording, and that's where it stops. Mm-hmm. They don't think about it beyond that. You have a great recording. Well, how are you going to get it out to the people? Yeah. They don't even think about marketing. Yeah. I'm sorry, I forgot. I don't know.
No, you got it.
I'm bass backwards. When I do stuff, I've even called marketing people, said, let's start up a marketing plan right now. I want to start a marketing plan for my CD. So when's it coming out? I said, I haven't even begun to write it yet. I just want to talk about marketing. People said, well, you must be crazy. But that's how I think about it.
Wow.
Because I said, you have a product. The whole thing is you want to get your product out there in front of people, but people don't have a plan. Right. And people don't think about this. They just think about the music. I mean, I have so many great CDs. I know people who are in my area that it befuddles me, that people don't put that interest in it. Or another thing, musicians or some people, not necessarily musicians, artists themselves, they expect other people to do it for them.
Oh,
They
that's
expect to
good.
do
Yeah.
things. They expect to, like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna give this off to Mark, and they'll do it. They'll make me famous, and I'll just sit back in my bubble, and I'll just continue to be creative.
That's correct.
It's not how it's gonna work. And that, as I see it,
Right.
you
Absolutely.
got to
right.
think about marketing. Marketing has to be. I think marketing, even the way I approach things, I spend low on recording, spend high on marketing to get,
Mhm.
because that's what we're here. That's what makes a difference, in my opinion.
No, you're absolutely right, sir. I mean, with respect to our creating the entree musician, that was the premise behind it, because you have to think of the music business as a business, and you have to think about all of the hats on the front end that you have to wear. And your instrument, hopefully you are proficient enough to be able to tell your story musically. Now you have to tell it in marketing. Now you have to tell it in distribution. Now you have to tell it with your logo, with your platform, with your, I mean, it doesn't stop. It is the circular journey, because after that cycle is over, well, it's time to get out project number 12 or 13,
Yep.
and you just keep it moving.
Tell me. I taught at I did a little study at a University of Delaware. I worked with students there in the marketing course because of the small business. You go to these colleges, they give you students in lieu of money, they get credits. So I even did one of their things for the semester of 2019, just working with students in there for. But marketing, I mean, I love as much as music, tell the truth.
Yeah.
But I'm a continual. I mean, there's a lot I need to learn, but I'm willing to learn, and that's what I do. So I'm a voracious reader on marketing, and can't speak enough about it.
Now, I understand that you're an educator in in your local school system, or are you at the settlement teaching as well, or
I used
in
to.
your area?
Yeah, after Billy Paul, I needed a gig.
And
So
that was teaching.
I started teaching in the Philadelphia school system for 2 years, and before going into Berklee, like again, I wanted to this. Before, like I said, I had a trade. I'm a journeyman electrician. My mother said, she said, if you go into music, she said, I want you to have something to fall back on. Now, I really liked electricity. I've been dabbling with electricity since I've been in the single digits anyway. So it was a natural, thing for progression for me. But like I said, Berklee, that's how I paid for it. So I went into Philadelphia school system and taught there for 2 years. And then after teaching for Philip, that didn't work well. Then after being with Billy Paul, being at a record label, I worked for mass transit in Philadelphia for 33 years in the trades department. At first, I started as a mechanic, electrical mechanic. Then I went into management, and I retired there 8 years ago now this year.
Yeah.
So that's what my income was generally for that time being. In the interim, while I was doing, I was writing things for TV shows. That's how I get it, because now I can bring the equipment back. Here we go, technology. I could bring the equipment back here. I was writing music for plots for TV shows. I was doing independent films and keep myself in. In fact, when I was on Alpha International, I was still working at SEPTA because now I could bring a studio in my house, So the things I brought in income,
No, that's absolutely excellent.
Hope I didn't go off the rail.
No, that was fantastic. I was wondering too, while you were, with your history of electronics and working in that field, are you as a composer or even as a musician more inclined to write from the piano or perform from the piano, or are you more a synthesist, and do you compose from that perspective as well?
I prefer to perform for the piano, the acoustic. I love the acoustic piano. I mean, I really do. And so I prefer to do anything like that. That's what comes down. But then again, you have some tunes that work well with electric piano or different sounds too. Yeah. But preferably, I love the acoustic piano. That's the great. Nuances, the sounds, the sounds you can get out that synthesize. I mean, I love the synthesized sounds, but they can tend to be one-dimensional, even though they do artificial type of sound like surround stuff like that. Sure. The nuances in the piano, even though I have some great sample sounds like can I mention the brand name was on my
Yeah, sure.
Keys,
Nobody's paying us.
Keyscape. Spectral Sound says I recommend this. I highly recommend this piano sample. It's called Keyscape. It's one of the. I have a lot of piano samples. That's about the best one out there. Wow. And as great as that is, like I said, it doesn't compare to a real piano because there's air around the piano when they put mics up. The sound that comes out of it, just when you have the air around the mic itself, it sounds differently.
Yeah.
But I'm a lover of acoustic piano.
That's pretty amazing. I saw an interview with Joe Sample from maybe about 9 or 10 years ago, and he was asked the same question with respect to synthesis, and he absolutely hated it. I mean, he had some very harsh things to say about how he was hurting his hands trying to play the synthesizer, even those with the weighted keys, but they did not give to him what the acoustic piano gave to him when he dug into it. Right. That's real cool. So as you were talking about that, and then I understand too, with respect to history, there was a huge conversation, especially I think as far as Miles Davis was concerned, with respect to Herbie and Chick moving from the acoustic piano to the electric piano. That was a huge conversation in jazz.
Did you know the little story about Herbie? Herbie said he did play electric. I said, what's that? Herbie didn't know what it was. He knew what it was, but he told him to start playing it.
Right.
But like I said, we all know that there are places where synthesizers and electronic stuff works perfectly. The acoustic, you take it to a different level.
Absolutely.
So I'm a lover of all, but preferably I love the acoustic piano.
My goodness. Now, final question would be, what would you, Mr. Kobie, tell the 19-year-old Mr. Kobie who's just getting started and saying, music is my life? What would be the one thing that you would tell that young man?
When's this stuff going to happen, man? I've been doing this for so long. When am I going to be famous? No, I mean, I've been doing this thing for 3 weeks now. Why nobody picked up on this stuff yet? That's probably, I got to get away from that. That's what I think. What would I tell them? Just continue to write. Continue to write. I mean, it's not, I mean, you may not be recognized, or you may not be recognized or appreciated by others, but what does it do for your soul? Wow. If it does for your soul, feed your soul and continue to do it. And they keep saying, we always like to have these affirmations and I call these bumper sticker things. Yeah, you keep doing, someone will come. Either you do it, then people will come to you. If you build it, they will come.
Right.
They may
not come. Work. Yeah, that's right.
That doesn't work that way. But I would just tell you, just keep feeding your soul. That's what makes you. If it makes you happy, you keep doing it.
That is so good, and I think that is great advice that spans beyond Mr. 19-year-old Kobie to the rest of the entree musicians who are watching, because I mean, I can tell you that there were times when we were putting our band together that we just played for our family members. We had to rented the place out, and it was like, selling tickets, and your family came. God bless them, for coming. But the one thing that I learned during those times is you play like the house is full.
Every time. Your performance should never change. If you're playing for one person to 50 million people,
that's exactly
good is good.
That's right. And so my cousins and my aunts and uncles went out and told, hey, they got something. You know what I mean? But there were a few more until you really start, doing the thing where people really respect the fact that you're going to give your all every time. And that's what being an entree musician is all about. And I got to tell you, sir, I am so very, very grateful to have met you. I hope that this is not the last conversation that we have. Thank you for putting the music out for us. Is it okay to give your information if someone wants to get in touch with you? Are you doing any coaching or any sessions on, marketing or anything that any entree musician could say, hey, I really dug what this gentleman has to say and I need to reach out to him? Is that okay to provide your information?
It would be one, because I said, I'm of a certain age right now. I don't want to take this stuff with me where I want to share this with somebody.
Yeah.
So if you reach out to me, I'll give it to you.
Excellent.
I'll give you the information, because I said it's here to share. I'm a teacher by nature. My mother was a teacher. My father was a teacher. Stepfather was a teacher. So it's in my blood to get. And the teaching to me is nothing but being passionate enough to share your passion with someone else. So by all means, let people know. Yeah, I mean, because I like doing, because I said I do film scoring.
Yes, sir.
If you, like I said, film, the current one's out right now. That's winning awards right now. It's called the 9 p.m. Whistle. And that's winning awards right now. It's won some in LA and I forgot Nigeria. So long story short, yes, please, because I said, I'll get back to you. I mean, like within reason. I mean, some people keep, like I said, don't expect people to do things for you. I'll give you an information to a path and a direction to go, and you go from there. But I'm open, man, because I said, I don't want to keep this stuff in me. I want to give it to someone. I learned this stuff for Sweden. And it's not just for me. It's who wants to know. So I'm open.
That's fantastic. Well, of course, your website, we're showing that across the top of the screen right now, but we'll make sure that in the description box, we'll put the information to get into Mr. Jawanza Kobie, his website, and all of the information you may need if you want to reach out to him. As you just heard, he's accessible. And he is what we call around here an ultra entree musician, because he's really put down the roots. He's really established the standard, and the rest of us are following that, especially as jazz buffs, where we're following it hardcore. But that's Jawanza Kobie, Mr. Jawanza Kobie, and blessings to you, my friend. He's an entree musician. My name is Jerry B. I'm an entree musician, but most importantly, so are you, and we will see you again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.